Time to roll the dice and see if Vox Machina's return can give us a nat 20. Hey everyone, welcome back to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with Season 2, Episode 6 of The Legend of Vox Machina. It's been a while, it's been a few months. We last reacted to this at the beginning of October. We decided to take a little break to just kind of refresh ourselves on this, because I was starting to lose interest. And the big reason that comes down to is that Season 2 has honestly been boring comparatively to Season 1. I have not been as invested in the story or the journey or anything happening, really. And there's been some just moments in the season that just really haven't done anything for me, and I feel like I feel like it's less focused, to put it simply. Season 1, it's like, okay, you had the start with the dragon and everything, but then the entire rest of the season is focused on the journey to fight and defeat the vampire and his wife, Silas and Delilah Bloodstone. But Season 2, it's like, okay, we start off with these dragons attacking the capital and everything, right? But then we're going to escape, and then we're just going to do everything else in between, all this other random bullshit. Like, I get this is based off of D&D, and that can happen. I understand that during a campaign, the players will go off and do their own thing. And I'm sure this is how it went in the actual campaign that they played. But, I mean, that doesn't really matter in this case for me. Because it's like, it may be like how it went for Critical Role, but I just find this not as entertaining. I find the plot, everything that's going on, to be a lot more boring and less interesting and less focused. And mind you, that's just how it goes. Like, even when you're playing D&D, from my experience, it's like some parts of it are going to be more fun to play than others. But if you're just watching it, you're like, this is an animated series based off that campaign, but we're basically watching what happened in the campaign, right? I mean, obviously with less detail and stuff, but still. So just kind of watching certain aspects of that, I feel don't translate as well into this kind of series. And part of the issue, I feel, is that I feel like, again, jumping around like this, it's like it works for a D&D campaign. Like when you're playing a D&D campaign, or even if you're, I guess, in some cases, watching someone like actively play, like if you're watching the actual Critical Role videos and all. But if you're watching this like translated and adapted into an animated series, it doesn't adapt as well. That's the issue on my end. Again, Season 1 was super highly focused. Apart from the beginning, apart from the like very start, which was, again, based off of something that apparently was prior to the actual campaign, the entire rest of the season was super heavily focused. It was one storyline, one thing happening, and everything served to build upon that. But in this one, it's like there's just like, yeah, there's one main goal, but like so many things happening in regards to that goal. I genuinely don't really see how this could even be completed by the end of the season with the path they're taking. They're taking such a weirdly paced path on this that it's like I can't see these dragons being taken down by the end of the season. Maybe one of them, but not all of them. I don't think that's possible. And I know there's like a season 3 coming, and that might like conclude this storyline. But it's like, it just makes it feel like the pacing is off because of that. It really does. Um, and I feel like that's just going to happen when you, again, do this kind of thing. When you adapt based off of a D&D campaign. An animated series, it can't really be paced like that and work. Animated shows, or just a serialized show in general, has to have a certain type of pacing to work. And D&D pacing is not it. You can't just have all these random side stories and expect it to feel cohesive. Like, for example, let me give an example here. That entire thing about like them invading the tomb or whatever of the Mother of Ravens or whatnot, where Vex died, and through a deal made, Vax was able to bring her back to life and everything. I couldn't care less about that entire thing. It was boring. I was completely disinterested. I wanted to know what was going to be going on the with the dragons and all. I didn't care about this random bullshit that was happening on the side. That was so disinteresting to me. Because it just felt like it was just thrown in out of nowhere with no actual build up. And I'm not saying it didn't have any build up. I'm just saying it felt like that. It felt like it was super random and out of nowhere. And that's based upon its relevance to the story, or lack thereof. So, yeah. And it's not like I hate this, where the series has gone completely. It's just, again, the pacing and everything is just taken a turn that I just have not enjoyed. Now, we're more or less entering the second half of this season. There's like 12 episodes, so technically we have to finish episode 6, then we go to the second half. But I'm hoping that the second half starts to pick things up. Because it's like, between that Mother of Raven stuff, between Keyleth doing the fire thing for her Aramente or whatever, and just all this other random shit, it's like, I just want to get back on track, you know? I think, again, I think that's just my biggest complaint right now. But I'm not going to lie here. Last week, I decided to drop The Imperfects and come back to Vox Machina, because I felt like The Imperfects, it's like I was struggling to get to it, and I was like not really super invested in continuing to specifically react to it. And I noticed over the past week, since I did that, and was like coming into preparing for this, I noticed I kind of had the same feelings towards coming back to this. I kind of had the same feelings about coming back to this series, that I wasn't super invested in doing so. And I kind of started to realize that I wasn't really missing this series while it was on hold. So, I do unfortunately think we have to kind of really figure this out soon, because we're already pretty much halfway through the season. And I plan right now to get through this season. But if these next like maybe couple episodes really start to like just dwindle my interest in continuing that much, we might not be able to. And I'm just telling you this ahead of time so you can be prepared, just in case. I don't want to lie to you guys and force myself to continue watching if I'm not interested. If my investment in continuing is too low, why would I force myself to go through with it? That would just not be great for you or me. So again, I'm very on the fence right now because I want to continue it. And I want to hope it becomes better. But at the same time, my actual investment in continuing to react to it has not been high. And honestly, there's really not been much excitement over this past week since I decided to return to this. So we're going to give it, again, probably a couple episodes here and determine based on how I feel after them. If my interest starts to dwindle even further, if it starts to go down even further, I'm probably going to drop it. Because if I'm being honest, I'm not going to put myself through that. And if my interest continues to dwindle, it's like I'm not going to want to react to it anyway, so what's the point? Why should I wait until it's like destroying me like emotionally to take that, to make that move, you know? But if my interest does rise back up, if my interest does increase after these like couple episodes or so, then I will gladly continue. And like I said, we are going to judge it based on just like the first couple episodes back or so, because I'm not going to like get to episode like 10 and then drop it with only 2 episodes left. No, I'm not going to do that. So more than likely by the end of episode 7, maybe 8, is when I will make the decision. And we'll kind of go from there. Because at that point, it's like it's pretty much like, why would you bother dropping it after that point anyway? Or after episode 8. Like, why would you drop it after episode 9 or after episode 10? It's like, that just, at that point, it's not worth it. So, if we're going to drop it, it has to be within the next couple episodes. But yeah. I apologize for everyone who was looking forward to this coming back in the first place, but I want to be honest and open with you about this stuff. I have not been excited about getting back to this, and that worries me. So, we're going to take this cautiously. I'm not saying it is being dropped. Just keep that in mind. I'm just saying that the possibility exists. And that, again, more than likely, it'll be said by the afterthoughts of episode 7 reaction or episode 8. We'll figure it out by that point. But for now, let's just get into this episode, hope for the best, and hope to God that this does start to turn me around and raise my interest back up. So, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So this episode had some fun moments in it, but it kind of expresses my issues with the season kind of very well in a single episode. This felt like two episodes mashed into one. The stuff with the Sphinx and then the invasion with the dragon um, felt like they should not have happened in the same episode. I feel like there should have been an entire episode with making their way through this area and finding the Sphinx, and then, taking on its challenge. The next episode should have then had them finishing the challenge with Scanlan, using his bard stuff. And then the invasion of the dragon leading into them going into the Fey realm and all. Having both of those take place in one episode cuts back on both of them. It doesn't allow either of them to breathe well enough, and it feels extremely rushed. The stuff with the Sphinx, the challenge, felt like way too quick. And I understand the idea is that, the Sphinx has never been injured and it's in his entire life and like all of history and stuff, and that he's exceptionally strong, has these beam attacks and everything. So the idea is, of course, he makes quick work of the members of Vox Machina, and the only reason Scanlan's able to win is basically because he uses his bard abilities with the song to touch his heart. I understand that, but I feel like the fights should have been longer. Having the fights be so short, it just feels like it was rushed through. It doesn't feel like, honestly, any of that was earned. Because it was so quick to get through, it feels like Scanlan was just kind of like given a random, going off of the basis for the title, a random kind of Deus Ex Machina moment. Even though it's obviously not a Deus Ex Machina, I know that. Nothing like that occurred. It feels like he became like suddenly more. What would be the word for it? Useful is not the word I'm thinking of, but we'll go with that. He suddenly became more useful, competent. That's what I was thinking of. He became more competent than he was before. Like the entire thing was based off of like him being serious, him taking things like being genuine and all, based off of a single line from before in this episode. That it just feels like there needed to be more to that. And again, him just happening to succeed with this super quickly felt like extremely unearned. It felt way too easy. And again, I understand that that's in a way the joke. Because even as the others come back and everything, and they see that Scanlan won and how he won and everything, they're like, the fuck? What? They're in shock and confusion because it's so unexpected. But at the same time, again, I feel like the fights should have been longer. And then the stuff with the dragon definitely should have been longer. And again, I mean, I know this is an adaptation of the campaign, and I know in the campaign these probably lasted longer. Because, let's be honest, pretty much everything for Vox Machina has been cut back in this series. Because you have to stick to 22-minute time slots. You have to stick to a certain amount of episodes. It's like they couldn't really do much more. I understand that. But when I feel like the pacing of it doesn't work for how it's shown, it's like that's kind of what I'm talking about. I'm not blaming Critical Role. I'm not blaming all the people who worked on this series. I'm not blaming Amazon Prime or whoever else. It's not really a blame kind of thing. It's just a situation of like, this as an adaptation just isn't doing well in terms of pacing, in my opinion. And I'm kind of genuinely curious what a lot of people think about this, like comparative to season one, especially because of how different it is. I wonder, like, are there people out there who prefer season two? I'm sure there are. It's just I genuinely don't understand why. But if you do, that's fine. I'm not saying that that's invalid. I'm just saying I just don't get it personally. This episode really showcases that, though. It really showcases the pacing issues that I'm finding with this. And I just really feel like a lot of this wasn't that interesting. Like the Sphinx thing was neat, I guess. The dragon fight was cool. But like again, the stuff with Grog and this sword, I could not care less about. Like the thing you may have noticed at the end there when Grog actually did impale Pike, I didn't cry. I didn't even get emotional. And you may think like, oh, well, you're just a heartless bitch, and it's like, in some cases maybe, but not in this case. It's like I understand it was supposed to be emotional. I understand it was supposed to be like heartbreaking and scary and just terrifying and shit. But at the same time, this storyline has just not made me care. Also, I know Pike is going to be fine. I'm pretty much 100% confident on that. They're not going to kill off Pike like this. Again, I know like in D&D characters can die from stuff like that, but you know that's not how this is going to happen. I'll bet you anything Pike does not die here. They might pull a fake one, or a fast one. They might fake us out, but she's not actually dying. So the shock of it, outside of just like being like, oh, that actually did end up coming true, it does nothing to me. I'm not like saddened by it because I feel no tension. I feel no concern because I don't feel like there's any concern to be had here. I don't think there's any chance of her dying. I really don't feel like this entire side story with Grog and the sword has done much of anything to make me invested enough to even care about his concern here with it. Or him, like, losing his cool and basically being possessed there. I just don't care. It looks like they're going to start building up more of his character and going into his backstory and, giving him more depth and stuff. But honestly, I don't really care about that either. Part of Grog's charm is the fact that he's just this big dummy with a heart of gold who we know nothing about. I don't really want to know anything about him or the tribe or whatever he comes from. I genuinely could not care less about that stuff. Not every character needs to have this amazing development. Some characters actually work better being simplistic. And I feel like Grog is one of those characters who you don't need to explain everything with, and you shouldn't explain everything with. In my opinion, at least. I'm fine with hearing more about the other characters, but Grog just not really. And they briefly bring up the entire Matron of Raven stuff in this, with the armor and Vax being a champion and all, and it very clearly continuing to affect his personality and mood. But again, that's just not something I'm interested in, and the show has done nothing to interest me in it. So, why am I supposed to care? Like, if there's a reason, you gotta give me that reason. I don't have that reason right now. And again, I think the biggest issue is that there's just way too much they're trying to do in this season. And again, just based off of that coming from a D&D campaign, it's like it just didn't adapt well because there's just too much that they're doing with the character work and I wouldn't normally say that because I love character work, but they're just not pacing it out well enough to the point where most of the time it feels it's more about that than, actually trying to stop the dragons. The storyline, which is the main storyline, keep in mind, feels like second fiddle in this season. It feels like it's not as important. This episode gave us a fight against the dragon, but nothing came of it. We have 4 dragons we have to defeat? Can't even defeat one of them here. Even though this would be a good time to do so, it's the halfway point of the season, would be an excellent time for that. But again, I understand that comes in part due to the fact that they just didn't defeat the dragon at that point in the campaign. I get that. I understand that. But sometimes with an adaptation, you have to change things. And I know there's a lot of people who would be upset and who would complain if you made that big of a change, because that a lot of critters, I think they're called, a lot of critters would say, oh, then it's not being faithful to the source material. And it's like, sometimes that has to be the case. A lot of people don't understand that. And it bothers me that a lot of people don't understand that, because it's like, when you adapt something, you have to change things to fit the new medium. If you adapt a book into a movie, for example, things have to be cut out and shortened because it can't work otherwise. If you adapt a manga/anime into a live-action series, like One Piece, then you have to change things around to fit the medium, because not everything's going to work in live action. There are certain things that just will not work and cannot be properly done. So you have to make those changes. And that's normal. That's fine. The One Piece live action is universally praised, and it's not super accurate to the original series. It gets the same tone and vibe and general feeling of One Piece down while still changing things up to fit the medium that is entirely necessary. And again, I know that they're changing some things. I know they're cutting out a lot, I'm sure, but I feel like they really needed to change up, I don't know, order of events or just the pacing of things here. Because it's like, I don't see how this is going to work in this way. I'm just not invested in what's going on for the most part with this season. Because it's like, the only thing I'm really invested in is the dragon shit. And we're not focusing on the dragon shit, because we're doing all of these other side quests to find what we need to maybe fight the dragons. But it's like, I just want to focus on the dragons without all this other side stuff, Like the quest to find these vestiges and all, whatever, fine. That's one thing. But then all these other little side stories that just feel like they're taking away from the main story, it feels so needless. And it gets annoying after a while. And that may just be me. That might just be me. I will fully acknowledge that. But nonetheless, that is my viewpoint watching this. So we're still going to give it 1 or 2 more episodes. Again, like I said, by episode 7 or 8. Because I'm still holding out hope that it's going to get better with all of that. But I'll be completely honest, this episode did not give me a huge amount of hope. It's like there's too many, and especially because there were some good things in this episode that I really enjoyed, but that were taken away from by by making them so short and unsatisfying. It's just it's just disappointing. And I feel like it all could have been done so much better. But like I said, just my thoughts. Tell me in the comments below, what are yours? What did you think of this episode? What do you think of how season 2 is going? Let me know down below. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.